Humans are already playing God. You might not realize it, but we've been controlling evolution for a very long time, especially when it comes to other animals. We selectively breed dogs into hundreds of breeds with desirable traits like good looks or a gentle nature. And now we're taking the next step by bringing extinct species back to life. In 2018, scientists announced that they had successfully cloned a woolly mammoth, brought back a species from the dead after thousands of years. They believe that this is only the beginning and that in the future we could bring back countless species from the dead. But should we? What does it even mean to bring back a species? Is it really the same thing as before? Let's take a look at what de-extinction is and what the future might hold for this controversial science. This is our channel. Bringing back an extinct animal is pretty straightforward in theory. Take DNA from a preserved specimen, sequence the genome, identify which genes are active and which aren't, and then use CRISPR technology to edit the DNA of a living animal so that it expresses those genes. For example, to clone a woolly mammoth, researchers took DNA from a frozen woolly mammoth, inserted it into an elephant cell, and then inserted that cell into an elephant surrogate. In theory, the elephant would grow up to be a woolly mammoth. But unfortunately, the mammoth embryo didn't survive. Instead, the elephant miscarried. So while they did clone a woolly mammoth, they didn't manage to bring one back. That said, researchers are optimistic that they will eventually succeed. If they do, we may think that we're simply returning woolly mammoths to their former habitat, restoring a lost species and rewilding the landscape. But that's only half true. While the cloned animal would have the same DNA as a woolly mammoth, its parents wouldn't. In other words, it would be more closely related to an elephant than to its own kind. It would be like a dog that looks exactly like a wolf, but is actually a poodle. So if we bring back a species like the woolly mammoth, it will be more like a subspecies than the real thing. But how much difference will that make? Woolly mammoths went extinct around 4,000 years ago, which isn't that long in the grand scheme of things. And over that time, elephants haven't really changed all that much. So woolly mammoths cloned today would be fairly similar to the ones that roamed the earth thousands of years ago. Plus, there's such a thing as convergent evolution, where two unrelated species evolve to look alike because they face the same environmental pressures. Woolly mammoths and modern African elephants both evolved from ancestors that looked a bit like today's mastodons. Both went through periods of rapid weight gain and developed large ears to cool off, tusks to attract mates, and woolly coats to keep warm. And since the climate has changed so much since the last woolly mammoths died out, scientists predict that it would look more like an elephant than one of its own ancestors. So it may seem pointless to bring back a creature that's essentially just an elephant in disguise. But it's not that simple. As far as we know, no elephant has ever laid down in the snow with its trunk curled around itself. Elephants don't hibernate like woolly mammoths did, and they don't eat plants that have been frozen solid. Woolly mammoths had to do both of these things to survive, so it's unlikely that elephants would automatically adopt these behaviors just because they happen to have some mammoth DNA. But bringing back a few woolly mammoths could help restore the ecosystem that they evolved in. Like when humans domesticated dogs, we can selectively breed de-extinct species to enhance desirable traits. Eventually, you get animals that couldn't survive in the wild, like pugs and dachshunds. But this also applies to extinct animals. If we brought back a few woolly mammoths, we could breed them to become more cold-resistant and better at surviving on frozen plants. After a few generations, they would be fit enough to roam free and help shape the landscape once again. This would be great for both the woolly mammoths and the environment, but it's still not ideal. For one thing, we won't be bringing back truly wild woolly mammoths. Sure, they'll live in the wild and hunt and find mates, but they'll always be a little too tame. They'll basically be captive animals that are allowed to roam freely. This doesn't seem too bad, but it means that woolly mammoths will never be able to reclaim their place in the ecosystem. When it comes to predators, they'll always be a little naive, which means that the return of the woolly mammoth could end up doing more harm than good. Some scientists have even suggested that we use de-extinction to bring back species that could help us in unique ways. A few years ago, researchers proposed bringing back the gastric-resistant nematode worm, a tiny worm that's immune to most pesticides and can survive in extreme conditions. This worm could help farmers who need to protect their crops without using harmful chemicals. Others have suggested bringing back the passenger pigeon, whose population was decimated due to overhunting. Bringing back this bird could help restore forests across the US and provide jobs for hunters. But some people disagree, saying that we shouldn't mess with the balance of nature, and that the birds could end up causing more damage than good. These are just a few examples of the many arguments for and against de-extinction. There are concerns about the ethics of playing God, and concerns about whether or not it will even work. Some scientists say that it's impossible to bring back a species because you need more than just DNA. You also need a whole ecosystem to raise that species. Even if you brought back a woolly mammoth, what would it eat? Where would it go? To address this concern, some researchers suggest creating artificial ecosystems to raise de-extinct animals until they're ready to roam free. But that raises new ethical concerns about keeping animals in captivity, and whether or not it's cruel. As you can see, de-extinction raises a lot of complex questions. But what's really interesting is that it's happening whether we like it or not. Yes, you heard that right. Scientists have already brought back a species from the dead without anyone's permission. Back in 2003, a researcher named Beth Shapiro managed to bring back a 19-year-old frog named Lazarus after it had been frozen for nearly 7 years. Nobody had asked her to do this, and she kept getting hate mail from people who thought she was playing God. But the fact remained that Lazarus was alive and well. Since then, the idea of de-extinction has grown increasingly popular. And in 2019, Colossal, a company founded by geneticist George Church, announced that it wanted to bring back the woolly mammoth by 2025. But these are just the first of many attempts to play God. We've already been doing it for thousands of years. Just think about domestic dogs. Humans bred wolves with certain temperaments to become friendlier. And then over the years, we selectively bred dogs for certain looks or behaviors, like how big they are, how fluffy they are, and even how dumb they are. When we domesticate an animal, we change its behavior and its physiology. Over time, it loses its wild nature. Today, people are trying to reverse the process by giving domestic dogs a shot of wild DNA. Researchers have given pet dogs genes from wolves to restore their hunting instincts. They've even given them wolf fur and pointed ears. These dogs are called wolf dogs, and they make up their own subspecies. Some people want to go even further and bring back extinct members of the wolf family, like the gray wolf's ancestor, the dire wolf, which went extinct about 13,000 years ago. Dire wolves were bigger than gray wolves, but they probably didn't look that different. Like woolly mammoths, they would be more like an eco-friendly wolf than a dire wolf. Still, some people want them back because they would be a living piece of history. If you bring back a species, what do you call it? An eco-friendly version? A lightsaber-wielding Chewbacca? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an awesome SCI show video.